Hey everyone, it's Mix JB back with another video in my self-reflective experience through my undergrad life um, as a part of my race and ethics studies final senior capstone project. This time I would like to talk about my mental health and mental health in general. And for me, what coping with depression and anxiety looks like. Um, Specifically during my time in undergrad, I really didn't pay too much attention to my mental health or even my emotional health. And I think that was all out of a trauma response um, to me suppressing my own sexuality and gender expression for my entire life until I turned 19. Um, and which I was 19 during my undergrad experience. And I really didn't understand how much work I had to do until after that moment for me when I came out, which what is coming out. But for me, this experience really taught me a lot about myself in terms of what I wasn't doing for myself, how I wasn't taking care of my priorities and my needs. And I don't want to speak about this too much in the terms of a past tense. This is more of a reflective video because this experience is still one that is very ongoing, very present. It just manifests itself differently in my life currently than it did when I was younger. And for me, my experience with anxiety and depression has been a very gaslighting one, self-gaslighting one, because I feel oftentimes as a Black person, especially as someone who has always been male presenting, manic presenting, um, it's been very challenging in this society to admit when I need help, or to admit that, not only admit that I need help, but to actually seek it for myself. And I've internalized a lot of that learning that I'm still unlearning when it comes to masculinity and what that is and what it could look like. And during my time at school, I shunned myself from reflecting and thinking about my mental health to the point where I was severely depressed, didn't really want to eat because of the way I viewed my body, didn't really want to do anything because my anxiety was so high that I would just get scared to start work and to start projects because I feared failure. And it was just crazy to think. It's crazy to think about. Not crazy, I shouldn't use that word. It's astounding to think about because I didn't necessarily have to go through those experiences by myself, but it's a very lonesome experience at the time. And when it came to mental health on my school's campus, it was something that was always preached that it needed importance, or it was always preached that it was important. But the practice of what was preached was never really there, and it never really solid. And again, it kind of goes back to my earlier video on white supremacy at a PWI, where this is one of those infrastructures that schools are not truly prepared to help their marginalized communities with. Because I remember attending therapy or I went to one of those drop-in sessions, and I remember feeling as though, where do I go from here? Because for context, the first session I ever went to was right before finals week. I'm pretty sure it was my sophomore year. Yeah, it was my sophomore year, right before finals, spring finals. I had went to a drop-in meeting And I remember thinking, what happens next? Because at the time, even just when it comes to healthcare in this country, the United States is my positionality, a US citizen. Um, Even being in this country, healthcare is just never guaranteed, especially for youth. And when I say youth, I really mean 18 to 26 specifically. And for me, that experience has been very troublesome because I remember thinking, in many ways, I denied myself the help because I felt undeserving of it, even though I'm very deserving and everyone needs help. So, one of the things that I've decided to do for myself in order to help myself was to practice mindful meditation. And for me, what this means is you don't have to completely set time and sit on the floor how I'm sitting. I'm sitting with my legs crossed, but you can't really see that. Um, but this, for me, is the most helpful way. Mindful meditation for me manifests itself through writing, through breathing, intentional breathing. And when I say intentional breathing, I mean inhaling and exhaling. And sometimes that could also manifest in closing my eyes so I could really ground and center myself in the day, in the present tense of where I am currently situated, and help motivate myself to find the drive to get out of the funks that I am in when I get really low into my feelings. Mindful meditation for me started, I would say, a year ago now, probably right as the time of the pandemic, so March, April of 2020. And it's not something I do often, which is something that I'm working on because, being real, the journey to self love and self appreciation and affirmation is not linear. It could look like weeks and weeks of progress, and then a day goes by, and then suddenly that day turns into 2 days and 3 days, and suddenly you completely are not involved and invested how you used to be, and your life completely shifts in so many different ways because you aren't taking care of yourself. And for me, I really wanted to take more time to really understand that my journey is not going to be perfect. And so many times, I feel many Black and brown and queer students can relate to this, is we feel as though we have to be perfect, and we have to have the world managed and figured out and compartmentalize every part of our lives to make it all work and fit. And life is just not that. It's not as black and white. It's nowhere near as simple and binary as we make it seem. And that's why I practice mindful meditation. So for me, I have a journal that I like to document all of my work, when it comes to really looking into my emotions, diving into my emotions, not only my emotions, but my thoughts about my emotions, trying to be emotionally available to myself, giving myself the space that I so often give many other people, but don't extend grace and kindness to myself. And this method has just been very helpful for me in figuring out how to navigate life in such a systemic, hierarchical society where people like me are not at the top. I hope some of the words I had to share here were impactful in some way. I just really encourage practicing mindful breathing breathing to clear your mind, breathing to expand your lungs, breathing to really increase your oxygen levels throughout your body. That's what's worked the best for me in terms of finding inner peace to be able to function in my day-to-day life. And with that being said, I hope you consider practicing mindful meditation. I'm going to include some resources down below in the description box for you so that I have found personally very extremely helpful. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next video.